and one of our most anticipated speakers of the 2021 NASDA Winter Policy Conference. Thank you for joining us today. This session is going to be focusing on agricultural workforce. We're so proud to have with us today American Farm Bureau President Zippy Duvall. And 2020 left us with a lot of questions and not many answers. But one of the things that really affected agriculture was the continued discussion about having a stable, qualified workforce development for our industry. We already know that having a qualified workforce was an issue before COVID when it came to immigration reform, access to quality workers, whether it be reforms to H-2A, H-2B, and of course the idea of an H-2C program as well. After COVID, we've had a more intense conversation about employee safety, especially when it comes to our meat processing plants and the swift and safe movement of people across our borders that want to work in American agriculture. So today, over the next hour or so, we're so fortunate to have the insight and perspective of American Farm Bureau, who have put a lot of time and effort on workforce development over several years. We're going to hear from Zippy Duvall, American Farm Bureau President, and then we're going to come back and have a moderated discussion. And if you have questions you would like to ask our panelists today, we'll have time for that at the end. And Molly's going to help us facilitate a question and answer session towards the end. At this time, I'd like to introduce my friend and American agriculture leader, Zippy Duvall. He has served as president of American Farm Bureau Federation since 2016. He is a third-generation farmer from Georgia. He owns a beef cow herd, raises broiler chickens, and grows his own hay, all while continuing to restore the land that he inherited. Through his leadership as AFBF president, Duvall has helped shape a new farm bill, defeat misguided regulations, shepherd new trade agreements, and ensure farmers and ranchers are supported through natural disasters and the devastating effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. In 2017, Duvall was honored by the National 4-H Council as a founding luminary, a group of influential 4-H alumni. Prior to being elected American Farm Bureau Federation president, he was president of the Georgia Farm Bureau and served on the AFBF board of directors. Duvall and his late wife, Bonnie, were married for more than 40 years, and we truly do miss her. He has 4 children and welcomed the 5th grandchild. They're honored with the National Young Farmer and Rancher Award of Farm Bureau back in 1982. And this is no secret, he's one of the biggest Georgia Bulldogs fans you'll ever meet. So the SEC is well represented today. At this time, please welcome American Farm Bureau Federation President Zippy Duvall.
Well, thank you, Ryan, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak at this workshop today and talk about some of the issues that we have faced over the last year now. I will tell you that I just came from a meeting in Ryan State in Kentucky, where one of the first meetings I've been to in person, and it just made me hungry to get back to normal again. So looking forward to seeing each one of you in person real soon. I know all the secretaries and directors and commissioners of agriculture that is listening today. You know, I've been around this country, met most of you, just had a great time experiencing the countryside in your states and all the great agriculture and the men and women that make it so great in America. Y'all do a tremendous job. And myself and our organization, whether it be at our state level or our national level, really enjoy working with y'all and being a partner to y'all. It is very true that the more we work together, the stronger we become as an industry. So even though I can't speak to you and see you and shake your hand, thank you so much for what you do for our farmers and ranchers out there in the service that you provide. You know, talking about the workforce in agriculture, saying it's important might be the understatement of the day because we have really discovered and known all along how important it was, but this last year has really put a highlight on how important it is to not just us in agriculture, but everybody around the country. Of course, we don't want to take any credit or any deserving, heroic accolades we can give to our first responders and the people that work in the medical field. because they truly have been heroes to all of us. But it takes thousands of people across this country that are essential to our food security and in that food chain. And we want to take a little time to talk about them today. You know, back in March, we saw some empty shelves at the grocery store. I'm 64 years old. I have never experienced an empty shelf at my grocery store, and it was alarming to me. And it really did make me think, even as a farmer myself, it made me kind of sit back on my heels and say, ooh, what if? What if this really was affecting the production of agriculture, which we all know that it was not the amount of food that was out there, but it was the chain getting food from the animals on our farm and the fruits and vegetables that we grow to the people. And it had more to do with that than it did anything else. Those interruptions, though, even though they were regional, they really hurt our farmers bad. You know, we live in a world where our food system is a just-in-time system. In other words, we start out a hog or a chicken or a cow knowing about the time that it's going to be harvested and be sent to the shelf for our consumers, just in time. And if anything interrupts that, the pipeline backs up. And when it backs up, it destroys what's happening on a farm. And we saw that happen last year. And hopefully we've learned a lot from those experiences. So we went from a just-in-time to a just-in-case system. A just-in-case system is just in case we have another pandemic, and we hope none of us ever experience another one. But just in case we do, what do we do? What do we put in place to make sure that we don't have those interruptions again? And of course, we have gotten there now. And really and truly, if you look at our amazing food chain, it adjusted within 60 days from going to all types ways of outlets for our food to just to the grocery store shelves. And we adjusted to that in a way that no one ever thought we could. So it was resilient. We're proud of what we did. Did we make some mistakes? Probably. Were we prepared? No, we weren't prepared. And it took us that 60 days to get up to preparedness. But just in case system of food will be more expensive. And the consumer needs to understand that. When you slow things down and space things apart, do the extra steps that we are doing today to protect our workers, it costs more money to do that, and it slows down so you have less production, and it will add a lot of cost to delivering our food to the stores and have it there for our consumers. And I know all of y'all know that and have lived it along with us on the farm each and every day over this last year. Farm labor becomes more and more important to us. And the pandemic just highlighted how important it is. We can't exist as an industry without good, experienced, hardworking people that work on our farms and in the plants that harvest our plants, prepare our plants and animals for the marketplace. It is true that the very first issue that we had to deal with in this pandemic was the H-2A workers coming across the border to help our farmers plant and take care of crops, to get them ready for harvest. The consulates shut down in other countries, and we were extremely scared to death that our workers wouldn't make it. Well, the Trump administration, the Departments of Agriculture, in the national and state level, Department of Labor, we all got together, found a solution to that, and just about everybody got their worker, and we were able to make it through that time. You know, it is that's not a new issue for us. Labor's not. It's something we have been working on for several decades. We need to continue to work together so that we can build that resilient agricultural workforce that we need and depend on. And at the same time, make sure that we provide food safety for the people in America and around the country. So if you start talking about H2A and what we need in the future with a guest worker program, it needs to be reliable, first of all. And if you look at the need of it over the last 10 years, the workers that we have applied for in H2A area have tripled in the last 10 years. So we know that that program has the ability to grow, and there's a need out there for those workers. Our workers that have been here for a long time, some of them not documented, they're beginning to age out, just like the farmers are. And we're going to talk about that age limit of our farmers in just a moment. We need a robust guest worker program that helps us protect our national security, because we found out this year, because of the pandemic, that more people in this country now want to know more about where their food comes from. And it is a national security issue. If we were dependent on other countries to feed us, don't you think they would keep that food in their countries during a pandemic or during maybe a war or anything else before they send it to us? We need to be able to supply our own food. Environmentally, we need to be able to have the workers here that are skilled workers so that we can make sure and do the right things on our farm and take care of our environment. Sustainability. We can't sustain ourselves if we can't find good workers, and that guest worker program needs to consider that. Financial stability for our farmers. It has to be something that's affordable for our farmers to be able to continue to provide those jobs. Right now, that affordability depends on the AWAR the formula that puts out the H2A labor cost. And it has gone up over the last 5 years, 20%. And it's unpredictable to our farmers. So we need to make sure that that wage formula really fits the need for our farmers out there on the job, so that we can provide a fair wage for people to work, but one that's also fair to the farmer, that he could economically survive and still be there to provide that job. Adjustment of status. You know, there's a huge percentage of our workers on our farm today that are undocumented. They are a victim of a failed immigration system. We all know it has failed for years and years and years. Even the Reagan administration tried to fix it, and it didn't work. We need now, as leaders, we need Congress and this administration to work with us to develop a program that carries us into the future, and not just seasonal, year-round workers. A lot of our industries, especially dairy and livestock, require year-round workers, and they can't even take advantage of the current H2A program. So we need to continue to work in that area, and we think there's an opportunity with this administration to try to fix some of those problems that are there. You know, if we don't get the right amount of workers, it's going to cause some things to happen in agriculture. And some of them not bad, some of them will be good, but it will make us become more mechanized. And with mechanization, there'll be less jobs out there on the farm for workers. It'll also cause a lot of consolidations. Smaller farms won't be able to afford a lot of the mechanization, and they'll cease to be farming, and the bigger farms will gobble them up. And if you're close to the people as I am, you know that the general public really doesn't want agriculture to be bigger. They want the family farm to survive, and they want to continue to know who their farmer is and what they're doing to grow their food. And that was highlighted during COVID this year. So speaking of COVID, as we went through this, it's added a lot of cost to farmers. We've had to adjust things, and really and truly, we probably should have been ready for this anyway, but who would have ever thought that we'd had a worldwide pandemic requiring us to space people apart, housing be different, have less people living in our housing, the safety equipment that we have to use. And it has been a tremendous additional cost. That's why we've worked with closely with Congress and alongside of y'all to make sure that some of the funding that came down in the CFAP programs help pay for some of that. We've also worked with CDC with our farmers. They actually were on a call with some of our advisory committees last week, talking about the requirements and what it might look like after the pandemic. And we also have been working to try to prioritize the vaccine for our workers, so that when we go to that stage 2, that we can make sure that the workers out on the farm get that vaccine, and we can continue that flow of safe, affordable food to our country. You know, when you start thinking about continuing that safe flow of food, you got to think about the future and who's actually going to be farming, or who's actually going to be doing the work in our industry. And trying to nurture future leaders in our organization is something that American Farm Bureau and our state farm bureaus have focused on for a long time. And I know also that NASDA has, even your own foundation creates a pipeline of talent that works in your departments across America, and that's very admirable. But this pandemic and the social events around our country has made us sit back and question, have we done enough? Have we done enough to make sure that we're bringing young people, middle-aged people, old, different genders, different races, different beliefs into our industry? You know, for us to go forward and be successful in agriculture, we have to be inclusive. And we got to create an environment everybody feels welcome at the table. And we are bound and determined in American Farm Bureau to try to work with you and your state departments of agriculture, with NASDA, which I have great respect for. Ryan has done a great job leading y'all this year. And of course, Barb has become a wonderful friend of mine since I've been in Washington, that does a tremendous job for y'all. We are working together and going to find even more ways to work together in the future to make sure that we are more inclusive and inviting everybody to the table. I know that there are some young people in the crowd today that are listening. And I know there's a couple out there that American Farm Bureau helped you get there and be part of the program. So we are very proud to be engaged in that area. And I just want to tell you how important it is for you to stay interested. And there are so many great opportunities in agriculture. And we have so many challenges coming down the pipe. You know, if you just talk about the conversation around climate and what that's going to bring to what we do each and every day on the farm, we need more researchers. We need more people that's out there innovating the new technologies or the new mechanical machines that we need to do the environmentally friendly things in the future. So we encourage all of you to be a part of agriculture, because we need to have the hardest workers and the brightest minds available to our industry. And then, of course, if you love farming, if you have a desire to answer the call of one of the most rewarding endeavors in your life and want to become a farmer, we want to help you do that. Because every 4 years when we do a farm bill, we are working hard, making sure that the beginning and young farmer programs and that you can participate through USDA can help you financially in other ways. We can help you in other ways to help you be a successful farmer. So we invite you to be researchers, innovators, and farmers on the ground. And we hope all of you will take a real hard look at the opportunities that lie in agriculture as we move forward. We have to survive as an industry, be inclusive. And we have to reach out to our young people. The outreach that we've done in the past is not acceptable. We got to do better in the future to make sure that we bring those hardest workers and brightest minds to our industry. Ryan, I'm going to quit right there because I really enjoy the conversation. I look forward to the questions you may have.
Well, thank you, Zippy. We appreciate your remarks today. On point as always. And let me be the first to say thank you to the American Farm Bureau Federation for sponsoring some of our students this week. We have a strong contingency of Manor students that are joining us. And we too at NASDA are doing our part the best we can, with a lot of work ahead of us to make sure that we contribute to having a more diverse presence at our conference, and also hopefully provide opportunities for young folks that want to choose agriculture as a career. You mentioned earlier the status of H-2As and how positions have jumped nearly 20% in the final quarter of 2020 compared to at the same period in 2019. First off, do you see any movement in H-2A or H-2B reform? And if you want to touch a little bit on H-2C as well, what are your thoughts underneath the new administration and Congress?
Well, it's been encouraging to me to hear them talk about immigration reform. And under that, we know part of that will be ag labor. So I think there's very much opportunities that we may solve some of our problems. We just like I said, it's affordability. The wage rate is a really difficult thing for our farmers because it's so unpredictable. We want to make sure that that we can provide a safe environment for our farmers, for our workers and our farmers and their families, because they work side by side. We need those year-round workers, and it's important that we do that. And we need to make a program that's easier to handle. I mean, several years ago, we started working on the waters of the U.S. One of the biggest problems we had with that, it was so difficult. We had to hire consultants and lawyers, and we don't want the H-2A program to be that difficult. We need it to be easy to work with so that our large and small farmers can take advantage of that. But I feel like we may have an opportunity here. I think that the challenge will be if we can make everybody stay in the middle and be focused on what we need and what will work on the farm, and not go to the extreme right or left, then we can make that happen. I think our battles will be trying to keep it from going extreme right or left.
Yeah, my experience has been that the number one complaint is administrative burden on the producer and the farmer, competitive wages compared to other industries that may be in a rural community as well, and the overall complexity of the program, especially when it comes to getting people in and out of the country, that we stand ready at NASDA to continue this conversation with you as well. The next question has to do with the pandemic and employee safety. Even before the vaccine was rolled out, we've been advocating that if you're going to classify American farmers and agribusiness workers as essential, let them be towards the top of the list when it comes to vaccine rollout. What are you seeing around the country? It seems to be really state level oriented about who's making those decisions, but how do you feel right now about the ability for those in agriculture to receive the vaccine as an essential worker?
Well, I feel good here in my state that those essential workers in agriculture will be in that next rollout. And we have worked with our state farm bureaus to communicate with your governors about how important that is. And I know all of y'all have too. I know that it's on the front of all of our minds. I think it's absolutely crucial that we do this. If this pandemic was to bounce back, I don't know how much more interruptions our farmers can handle. Our marketplace needs to come back. We need to be able to get back to normal, because this just in time and just in case versus just in case has been a tremendous struggle for our farmers. And we've got enough things hitting us head on. We surely don't need this. So we need to get this vaccine out there. I think they'll be willing to do it. And our farmers will be willing to make sure that their workers have it. And it's vitally important that we do that. But we all know that the governors have a big control over that. And hopefully all of y'all, along with our state farm bureaus, are making sure that governor hears about it.
That's right. And I would like to also say thank you to our NASDA members. In many of our states, the guidelines before the CDC rolled out with what social distancing means, et cetera, that was actually invented by agriculture because we never shut down. Our farmers have been socially distancing their entire life out in the fields, but our agribusinesses in particular, they're the ones that never shut down and helped guide the CDC towards what proper PPE, social distancing guidelines would be. You mentioned earlier about the need to encourage young people to join agriculture. And in every state, we have an aging average age of a farmer. Here in Kentucky, it's I think it's 64 years old. So it's almost, the average age is almost retirement age in other industries. And what advice would you give young people who are just starting out in a career in food and ag? And we talked a little bit about diversity as well, and our friends from Mainers with us, but also the increased role of women producers. In Kentucky, 30% of all our farmers are women and 10% are veterans. And so we're starting to see a more diverse producer environment across the United States. So what advice would you give?
Well, one, I want to mention the Manners organization. You know, we wasn't that familiar with that organization and got acquainted with it through NASDA. And we really appreciate it. And we think it's opened up some tremendous doors for us, an organization, to be able to be more inclusive. You know, when I think about inclusive in Farm Bureau, because we're all about policy that shapes agriculture for the future. You know, we can't have the correct policy to be the one united voice of American farmers if we're not inclusive to everyone. And so I think that's been just tremendous to be introduced to that program, and look forward to continue to do more work there. But we're at a threshold. To me, I think it's a new revolution of what we're going to be doing in the future. The new innovation, the new technologies coming down the pipe, the research and development dollars that I hope is going to come back to agriculture. I hope this Congress will do that because we have got to have that research done so that our agriculture, our farmers can stay on the cutting edge. That means we need researchers. That means we need people out there inventing things. We need farmers on the ground. We need policymakers that understands agriculture. So it is a unbelievable area for opportunity. Now, I know no one goes through high school thinking, well, I'm going to be a farmer. I understand that, not this day and time. Nobody wants to be out in the field where it's hard work, dirty, or behind the cows. And listen, I've done that. I milked cows for 30 years myself, and I grew up on a farm. I love it, but not everybody loves what I love. So that's just not all of agriculture. There is, I understand today, more jobs available to graduates of agricultural schools than there are graduates. That should tell you something. There is a place for you. I don't care who you are, where you come from. It doesn't make any difference. There is a place for you in agriculture. And I challenge you, if that's what you want to do, you know, and God's gave you that talent, don't let anybody tell you can't do it. You know, when the door is open, you stick your foot in, you walk in, and you take your place in this great industry that we call farming and ranching. And I promise you it will be a great career for you.
Yeah, it reminds me that growing up on our farm, my dad inspired me by paying me with character building exercises on a he didn't charge me for rent or food either, so it was a pretty good deal. I want to remind our folks that we want to have questions from you. So I have one more question for President Duvall, and I'd like to hand it over to Molly. So if you have any questions, be ready to put those in the chat in the queue, and she will facilitate those questions. So Zippy, we have a lot of millennials that are looking to agriculture. I talk to them all the time. They didn't come from farms, but they want to get into ag. And one of the things that we find challenging when we do want young folks to get in to ag is a quality of life. You know, a lot of Americans are moving out of rural America. If we wanted to move back in, we need things like affordable health care, access to health care. We need to have entertainment and, of course, broadband internet. So if you could touch upon quality of life issues in rural America and how that affects attracting people to agriculture.
You know, I've traveled this country and every state and Puerto Rico, and had the opportunity to just about visit every Department of Agriculture, state Department of Agriculture across the country, and saw the wonderful men and women that make up American agriculture. There is not a better place to raise a family and make a living, but it does come with its disadvantages. And these disadvantages, I look at them as not so big as far as personally and socially, but your generation, their generation, the new ones that's coming out of college now, I mean, they've had broadband in college and they're not going to go back to our rural communities where they can't stay connected with their friends, where they can't be innovative and being able to create things for us for the future. They have to have broadband. I was on the phone today with the chairman of House Ag Committee, Congressman Scott, and told him we have to fix this problem. This is not a luxury. It's a necessity. And to him and me in our age, it's just as important it was to us when we had electricity brought to us in the 30s and 40s. And today, it's just as important for us to deliver broadband to the rural communities so that you, the next generation, will want to come back to rural communities and build those communities and create jobs in agriculture and around agriculture. There's so many jobs around agriculture that provide services to our farmers and ranchers, and our rural communities are just slowly but surely drying up. We need you to come back, and we know that one of those things that's going to make your mind up is whether or not you got access to broadband, health care, and education. And hopefully our organization and the Department of Agriculture around this country can put enough pressure on Congress and administrations in the future that we can make that happen, and hopefully sooner than later.
Thank you, Zippy. So Molly, if you want to join us, if you have any questions in the queue, please go ahead.
Thank you, Commissioner. I do have a few questions here. The first question is from Hawaii Chairperson Phyllis Geiser. Do you believe states should invest in FFA as a pipeline for agricultural workforce development?
By all means, FFA and 4-H are two of the most unbelievable youth programs that I have been associated with. I've never seen a dollar there that was spent that was wasted. They not only grow great, talented leaders for the future, they grow thinkers, people that become those innovators and researchers. And I think that is money well spent. And unfortunately, in my lifetime, I've seen people, legislatures and federal government pull away from that, or school systems pull away from FFA. And that is just exactly the opposite way we should be going. There are so many life lessons to be learned in and around those youth programs. And I hope that they will continue to grow because I know that they're fantastic, and they do create a pipeline to our industry.
Okay, Molly.
Okay. I do have another question from Courtney Llewellyn. Having workers is crucial, but so is access to farmland. What kind of assistance would you like to see for young people who want to get into agriculture, but may not have the capital off the bat?
Yeah, I think the first place we start is in the Farm Bill. We continue to work on the funds that are available and the programs that are available through USDA. That's the right way to do it. We got to make sure that those programs, not just for young people, but for beginning farmers. There's a lot of people that retire at middle 40s from maybe the military or some other area that are looking to be in agriculture, and they need the opportunity to do that. So that's the first place we do. The second place in American Farm Bureau, we try to create mentorships between state farm bureaus, some of their members that are willing to mentor young people or beginning farmers coming into the business. We'd like to see that grow in the future so that we can help people. But availability of monies, you know, one of the fears I have in the discussion around climate, which doesn't have anything to do with climate, but it has to do with availability of farmland. You know, we have a conservation program with, I think that's 23 or 4 million acres in it. And I fear that might grow. And if it grows, it's going to be less land available for young farmers and beginning farmers going into business. So we have to make sure that we watch policies as we move forward, that we don't do anything to make it more difficult. But I think the place that we really can make a difference is is in USDA and make sure that everybody gets treated fairly, regardless of where they come from or who they are, and that we get more people that are interested in farming involved through those programs so that they can be set on a path for success. And we're always there to help mentor.
And I'll just add that USDA and NASDA and many of your state departments of agriculture already have a formal program that specifically targets those who served our country in uniform first before coming back to the farm. And the Farmers Veteran Coalition, partner of NASDA, as well as my department and your department, chances are there's some programs. And I think the USDA recently let out some grant money to help better evaluate transition issues and help recruit those who served in the military join agriculture as well. Molly.
Okay, let's see. I do have another question. It's from an anonymous poster, which we don't like to accept, but it looks harmless enough. Do you seek education and training as a viable option to address ag labor shortages, or how do we strike a balance between guest workers and homegrown ag laborers?
You know, that's a real good question. I do think that, and I said it before, we have failed on the outreach to our young people about agriculture. You know, we put forth some efforts to do that as an industry through the Department of Agriculture, through our organizations. But you can look around and see the age of the average farmer and realize that we have not been successful in that area. I think we've got to really do a better job there, especially in areas of bringing diversity to our organization. So I think education and outreach is key. Now the balance with H-2A workers, of course, in the H-2A program, you have to advertise locally, provide those jobs, the jobs to local people, whoever might apply for those jobs first. You can't take away from the American worker to participate in those programs. But you have to take who comes. And we see a lot of people apply, but we see very, very low percentage of people that stay and continue to work in agriculture. And I can't answer the reasons for that. Maybe it's just not what they want to do. Maybe they found better employment somewhere else. I'm sure it runs a range of a lot of different reasons.
Hey, Molly.
I should also note, I just got a message. That question was from Wyoming Director Doug Miyamoto. So glad you were able to address that.
Thank you, Doug.
I don't see any other questions coming through.
Ryan, one other comment. You know, we were talking about young people. Hey, I invite you to look for a career in Farm Bureau. I mean, we have a lot of people, and I'm not talking about selling insurance. I know a lot of young people got your cars and you got your insurance. That's not what I'm talking about. We'd love to have you that business there. But what we're talking about is being part of an organization that is the advocate for the American farmer on the state and national level. We got some great jobs, and we would look forward to having a lot of you show some interest in that area. We would welcome you and we would provide an environment that you would enjoy working in. I promise.
A comment earlier was made about availability of land. And if you didn't grow up on a farm or don't have the chance to inherit or purchase from a family member, what the issue is. You know, American Farmland Trust has done a lot of work on this. In Kentucky, we had an informal survey that showed that 30% of farmers have not, over age 65, have not identified who their successor is going to be. And as we know, a lot of farmers at age 65, they're just getting started. I met a farmer once who was 85 who said that he's going to let his son have a chance to run the farm next year. So, you know, that's a common story. One thing that we're trying to have a conversation about, and we need some help, is legal transition guidelines and apparatuses that would allow those not in ag to be able to purchase over a series of time, or let young people have a long-term lease as well. One thing that I know in Farm Bureau, one of the services that are provided is estate planning. And And I tell farmers all the time that don't make the assumption that your family's going to get along after you're long and gone. That's a guaranteed way for siblings to fight with each other. So we're trying to push estate planning. And I always tell people the next best thing of having your own plan is to be in somebody else's, that you might actually get lucky. And estate planning helps combat the biggest reasons why family farms break up in America. It's called the 5 Ds. It's death, disability, divorce, drinking, and drugs. Those are the 5 Ds that break up American family farms all the time. And estate planning can help mitigate at least the first 3 of them. And that's one thing that we're trying to educate, particularly our older producers, is to go ahead and meet with that lawyer, meet with that insurance agent, and perhaps give a young person, if you don't have anyone identified who's going to buy that farm, give that young person a chance for a long-term stability to buy your farm or purchase it, et cetera. Molly, any more questions?
No other questions are coming through, but I wonder if I could ask one. One of the meetings, one of our NASDA meetings a few years ago, I remember talking with an attendee about these earthquakes that had just ravaged the California wine industry, and I asked her, that kind of image gives me chills as a potential farm owner, as a potential vineyard manager. Gave me chills. And I said, how do you get that kind of resiliency? How do you look at a problem that large? And I wonder if you could kind of speak to kind of the mental resiliency it takes to own and join a farm operation.
Well, I would say it kind of comes natural. In farming, we know those natural disasters are going to happen. I've had several hurricanes, many droughts to hit my farm over my 40-year career as an adult on the farm. And a lot of that is about planning for the future. And you have to make sure that you do build up a certain amount of reserves just to protect your business when hit like that. Plus, there is a tremendous amount of risk management tools out there today. And it might not speak to earthquakes now, but as far as natural disasters, a tremendous amount of risk management tools out there now that's either provided through companies or provided through the federal government in the way of crop insurance and other things. So it's all about having a business plan, preparing for a future, and having some reserves built up to make sure that you can get your family and your farm through a difficult time. Because if you get involved in agriculture, that's one thing you can bet on, and you'll win that bet. A disaster is going to hit you at some point in time in your career, and it might hit you multiple times depending on where you're at in the country.
I do have one last question, and if you have a question, shoot it over to Molly right now, then we'll wrap up the session. There's been a lot of talk about ag technology across America, and it seems to me that a lot of venture capitalists who have no background in agriculture are starting to invest in agriculture, whether it's in land, new technology. In Kentucky, we're having large-scale greenhouses built, which is not unique. A lot of states are having that. And what we've noticed is that technology advances are actually attracting non-agriculture people to agriculture. And they may not speak the same language, but they're wanting to be the next Elon Musk or Thomas Edison of ag. And I was curious what your thoughts were on this tremendous amount of capital that's being injected, particularly by investors, into rural America, and how that is going to be cohesive with the established farming community.
Well, I think that's one of the things that we've seen come out of the pandemic, where so many people want to know and want to have the security that America is going to be able to continue to feed themselves, and see that the bright future of that innovation in agriculture is going to be. They know about our labor problems, so they know it's got to be mechanized. They know about the challenges with climate and environment, so they want to be part of that cutting edge technology, whether it's in a seed or whether it's in a machine that helps us make that next step. So there, just like I said, there's a new revolution ahead of us. And I think that's part of it. Now, how that mixes with agriculture. As we have these conversations about climate, our farmers are going to be out there ready to invest in the programs that are going to be put before us. Hopefully those programs will be voluntary. Hopefully some of those programs will create another stream of revenue for them. And they're going to have to have that innovation and research and for them at their fingertips so that they can participate in those programs. So I think it will blend well. Hopefully it'll be people will do it for the right reasons and it'll turn out right, because we got to get this right. We got to make sure our farmers are sustainable financially. We got to make sure that they can sustain their environment around their farms, and we got to sustain agriculture for the future of this country and the men and women that live here and raise their families. It's interesting to me that the pandemic, when those empty shelves showed up, there was so much interest by the general public as to who the farmer was. Was he going to go back to work during the pandemic? Was he going to continue to fill those shelves for their families to buy off of? And we noticed that. So we started hashtag Still Farming at American Farm Bureau. It's touched over 100 million people. That's a third of our population in our country. And it's also been used in 89 different countries across the world. So now is the time for us to tell the story of the American farmer and how well we do our job, because, rather than people talk down to us from other parts of the world about how we are destroying our environment with our greenhouse gases, we're leading the way by producing less than 10% of the greenhouse gases in America, which compares to other countries' agriculture running from 25 to 35% of their greenhouse gases. We're the leaders. They should be seeing what we're doing, but we only do it with technology and innovation.
Thank you, Zippy. And it should be noted at this point, we'll have discussions later this week about climate, but NASDA and American Farm Bureau Federation, among other ag organizations in DC, have joined an alliance to talk about this. We know that we had Zippy, we had Chairman Scott this morning and others join us. We know that this is going to be a conversation, so it's best to have a seat at the table. Otherwise, you're on the menu. And so we want to make sure that we defend agriculture, but also have an opportunity to be influential on the policy that's made. Molly, any more questions? If not, we'll wrap this session up just a little early.
I have just one more question.
Okay.
It is from the Idaho Department of Agriculture, from Chanel Tewalt. Workforce development seems to be key to many concerns about meat processing across regions and the nation. What are the presenters' thoughts about this issue?
You want to go first, Ryan?
In particular for us, my story can be echoed in most of the states, that when we saw that short-term supply chain issue in April, we did not hesitate to invest in our meat processors. And in Kentucky, like many of the states east of Mississippi, we don't have many large-scale meat processors. A lot of them are small, but they're USDA inspected. And so for us, we were immediately invested $3.5 million into helping them increase their kill capacity. And not only do the consumers like it, because now they're buying local more, which is a win-win for everybody, but we're talking to our school systems now that may want to source that protein from a local producer, which will be a long-term win. But agriculture benefits from that too. Those investments in those meat processing plants benefit all farmers. They benefit all farmers, and particularly those that want to get into niche markets or increase their capacity. But COVID also highlighted a stressor that there needs to be some long-term investment in around the United States. Zippy?
So at American Farm Bureau, we recognize the same thing. And one of the things we've been working toward is to have some grants provided for smaller to medium-sized packing plants and try to move forward in that area. And we're trying to make sure that any of the regulations that are put before us in the future would be more reasonable and really some that is more inclusive to working with states and local governments to make sure that, really and truly, I was county commissioner. Best government is local government and state government. When people at home are calling the shots, they make the right decisions. So we encourage that. But I think, like Ryan said, as the pandemic came on and people lost their markets, they turned to locally grown and local food sources. And it has been a really silver lining to the pandemic for our farmers to be able to kind of adjust to that. And they want more of it. I'm a beef farmer. I would love to sell my beef with my farm label on it, but there's no way I can do that because there's not a processor anywhere around me. And there's many of us like that.
Thank you, Molly. And one last point here is that one of the major policy discussions that NASDA is having this week are the future of food systems, and not letting this glimpse of local agriculture become a fad, but become something more permanent that helps out all of our states. Zippy, we want to say thank you for your time today. Thank you for your leadership in American agriculture. A lot of our folks may not realize that, but he and Dr. Glenn get together multiple times a month to talk about our organizations. And so I just want to say thank you for what you do. And we look forward to having you in person over the summer or this fall in Louisville, Kentucky as well. So thanks once again for the organizers and for our host. And the next one starts, I believe, at 4 o'clock. So thank you, Zippy. Thank you all.
Thank you. God bless you.